Well, set during one of the most politically divisive eras in American history, Thread for Pearls is a coming-of-age tale that takes the reader on a wild ride as they experience for themselves what it was like to be a child of the 60s and 70s. I was born in the mid-'70s, but I wanted to be a wild child of the 60s and 70s.
We're wild enough.
I think I reincarnated. I don't know.
You did good.
But we're very happy to have author and filmmaker Author-Lauren-Speeth join us on Big Blend Radio today to talk about her debut novel. It's one that shares a message of resilient hope and post-traumatic growth. Mm-hmm. And I think, I know, Nancy, you've talked a lot about the book already on the show before we bring her on, but you telling me about the book and reading about it, I think that this is already a book that I think everyone can identify in times of what we're going through now in this country and around the world. Everyone, the website is threadforpearls.com. You can also keep up with Lauren if you go to Twitter and Facebook and just type in Author-Lauren-Speeth, and you'll find her. Welcome, Lauren. How are you?
I am fine, and thank you so much for having me and for that beautiful introduction. I feel like not even saying anything, just letting you two talk about me.
I know. Nancy just started at the beginning of the show, and she's like, okay, she's, book report coming up, but she really enjoyed it. And I think it's something interesting because what's interesting about this is, she was a child of the 60s and 70s, and I'm in the mid-70s, and we've had similar backgrounds to your main character of the book, and I think that this is going to resonate with many, many people now. And I think that there's going to be some do you think there's a connection between what we're going through now as a society as to what was going on in the 60s and 70s?
I do think so. I think so very much. And kids right now, students right now are diving under their desks because of shooters instead of because of the USSR. But they're still afraid for their lives, and for different reasons. People are marching in the streets for different reasons. There are parallels, and people are afraid. But the idea of the book is that Rome's always been burning since humanity's been around, and yet you need to find that resilient hope. You need to find a way to move forward, and especially growing up in the 60s as I did, when there was a time where there was an idea in parenting called Benign Neglect, where you kind of had to raise yourself. We sort of have to raise ourselves in these moments, and so she's sort of trying to figure that out, the protagonist, and I think we all kind of are.
My recollection of it is just going to go back to the economy and the fact that when I was growing up, first my dad worked and my mom was stay-at-home mom, and then there became a time where my mom had to go to work too.
Right.
And then my dad got sick and he couldn't work, and the whole power shifted. That changed. Right. And my thread for Pearls, my hope rested in my grandmother, who kept rescuing us over and over again. And it's interesting because it's hard to ascertain. You can stand next to somebody and like or not like their behavior or what they say or what they believe in, but you don't really know their history.
You don't.
And if you don't know their history, you don't know where they're coming from. And I feel like this is the second time in my lifetime in this country that people don't want to talk to each other, which is unfortunate, so the idea of understanding each other's point of view just goes out the window because everybody's so hot about it. And
right.
I hope
Back then it was Vietnam that was so divisive, and I tried to talk a lot about that division and how difficult that was for the protagonist of the book to rectify, because she was trying to grapple with it, two sides of her family, and she even got flack from the students around her when she tried to think for herself about it. It's difficult to be a peacemaker in these times.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, and tell us about Fiona. Tell us about her.
So I wanted to write a character where we could all find a little bit of ourselves. So I wanted to have, a series of unfortunate events and see how she tackles them, because I work a lot with students, and I'm finding a lot of angst right now, a lot of worry, there's some suicidal trends that I don't like, and I thought perhaps if I wrote a story about, I asked myself, how did I get through? For me, I read a lot of science fiction, but I didn't feel like writing a piece of science fiction right now. I felt like writing something about the 60s felt like it resonated. And I also, as a musician, I thought, wow, music could really speak as well. It could be almost an undertone, so that when you're having a song like the Beatles, it won't be long. There's all that wishing and wanting and longing that just, if you know the song, it just adds that much color to the book so much more easily.
I think that what's great about it is that we go through these cycles in history. And when you bring in the music side, and thank you for doing the playlist, because it's just so cool. We're gonna have, Nancy and I have our Family Friday music nights, and we watch live music. And I love YouTube because I get to watch all these concerts that I never was around for. I wasn't born yet, and all my favorite musicians I get to watch. I'm like, this is so cool.
Much fun.
But so I think one night we're just gonna sit and do your playlist.
Oh, that's
we'll just
cool
do a
idea.
night of your playlist.
That's
because
cool.
it's so cool. And I think it's true because, I look at my age and I think about, my mom and obviously know her very, very well, but all, family and friends that I know of all different ages, but we can resonate and connect over music. And right now musicians are always going, who did what in the past? And the 60s and 70s, it ain't dying. It's like now. It's happening now again. And I think we're in that spin cycle of music doing that again. So, and the 80s. So I think it's timely, really, on the music front with what you're doing.
I hope so. I hope you're right. And I hope, your idea maybe about our next guest being interested in doing if this ever turns into a movie, how fascinating would that be?
I know Josh Pfeiffer, dude.
Cool.
Everyone I know, and he does really good videos of his music too. He's all into like every song is a complete story. So you know what I mean? That's what's interesting about what he's doing, and now with the world of singles. But thank you for putting Rock Lobster on your playlist. It's number 2. Was it you who did it? I see Michael Daly. There's playlist there.
Rock Lobster is important in the story actually. Later on in her college days, Rock Lobster plays an important moment in.
Okay. So now, do you listen to this playlist when you're writing?
I listen to this playlist all the time. It's a playlist that I love this playlist.
That's funny. Okay, so how many stories came
these
from the songs? Like, did you go, okay, I'm going to have this happen to her because this song happened, or?
Well, interestingly, some of them, like Ohio, it was just that's what was going on. Ohio is a Crosby, Stills and Nash song that has to do with the Vietnam clash, the protests. But
Kent State,
right. So some of them I wrote in because it made sense to write in. Some of them came to me like I needed a way to start the story with a real bang. So I started it with a car crash, and I wanted something on the radio. So I had to figure out what was going on at that moment in 1963, 62, 63, whatever year it was. And Skeeter Davis had a song called "The End of the World." And why does the sun go on shining? Why? Don't they know it's the end of the world? And there's this breakup. It's about a breakup. But it starts on one coast. It ends on another coast. Each one of those moments has a song going on to it. They both have reference to the ocean because they're both happening right next to the ocean. One begins in New York and it ends in San Francisco. And that's not a spoiler alert. That's just the locations
Right.
and 2 songs.
I know,
But
we're all
these
worried. I'm sitting here with like a thing, like I'm going to poke Nancy.
I'm not going to
anytime
spoil
she
the story
starts.
for you, but I will say that I was very purposeful in choosing the beginning song and the ending song and having them have a sort of a resonance or an echo in a weird way, that one of them would have a particular feeling that sort of sets a tone. Is this the way it is, or the other tone of the final song? Oh, that is that the way it is, you know.
And I think that this is, it's interesting how songs can change in your life too. There's like all these different memories. It's a way to remember things, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
Music. Yeah.
Right.
I think
and there's
music
songs
does
that
it more
come
than
on.
anything.
That there's a song that comes on. I try, since so many students that I know are suicidal at the moment. There's a moment where she's suicidal, and there's a song that comes on the radio, on her car cassette. That's back when there were cassettes in cars. That is by mistake, but it isn't by mistake at all. And that song says volumes if you know the song, and if you don't, you go to my playlist and you listen to it.
Man,
So.
everyone has to go look at your playlist, man. It's cool. Yeah. You got. There's songs I forgot about, and then there's songs like thank you for keeping Yusuf Cat Stevens on there too, because he was just such a huge. I don't know. He was just such a
he's got such a beautiful voice.
Yeah, just such a a peaceful man. He was the element of peace, and unfortunately, sometimes people don't get that now. They don't understand.
If you weren't back then, you have to look at things with the lens of then. You can't apply the lens of now to people in his. You have to understand the times and apply the lens of the times to those times, or else it's not. Today's paradigms don't necessarily fit people who didn't understand those paradigms then, or you have to be. It's unfair. It's sort of like you can't apply to parents back then our parenting paradigms of today. There was an idea that made sense that was being taught called benign neglect. Even Maria Montessori said if a child thinks they can do it by themselves, leave them alone. So some parents took it to this extreme. If the child thinks they can raise themselves, well, let them have at it.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And
I
also
think it's funny that you say that, because I have to say my parents were the exact opposite, where you weren't allowed to even think for yourself most of the time. And anything that you thought up was like, no, it's this way. Like,
right.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like total opposite. And so I'm reading this, I'm like, I want to like have that freedom to just do it all by myself.
But you did, because you and your brothers and sisters defied your parents and did everything on your own anyway. Well, same like when I was in boarding school. Once I learned the system, I knew that I was in permanent detention, so that was it. I walked out of boarding school every single day. I went out and did my own thing and got away with it. Because once I knew the rules, I was like,
you made up your own rules. You sound a lot like Fiona to me.
I'm like, okay, I'm reading about myself as Fiona, and then I'm like, okay, no, I'm switch hitting with Lisa.
That's great. That's what I wanted. I didn't want to write a personal person. I wanted to write something you could relate to, and you could go, okay, in this situation, would I be like that, or wouldn't I? And can I at least relate to the situation? Or to one of the friends.
Okay, if that happened to me, I would do this. And then I'm like, okay, now if that happened to Lisa, I know she already did that.
Okay.
Great. But this is so exciting, Lauren. When you look at this, don't you think that this is something that is a conversation starter and also can bridge gaps with families, maybe understanding both sides and different what was going on? And I think we do a lot on family history on our shows. We have a third Friday family history show, and we've learned through that to really remember that was what was going on at that time. So you can't really come out with your little picky pointy fingers and go nee, because that was what it was there and then, and now is now, and what we've learned now is different than what people knew back then. You know what I mean? And so we have to learn. But it's true, don't you think? With your story, that families can, I want to see like a book group for families.
Wow.
To connect, to communicate. Well, I mean, there's always women's book clubs and book clubs for certain genres, but I would like to see like family book clubs.
Well, that's an interesting concept, just to get people off of their electronic devices and looking at each other and talking to each other instead of cell phone texting each other at the dinner table would be an interesting thing.
Yeah, I like
we
that.
had strict hours of when you were allowed as a child to watch television, and it was never while you were eating.
We never had a television.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. No, seriously, that was for adults. And once in a while you got to watch Ed Sullivan.
Wow. Well, there were all sorts of parenting styles back then.
No, but there's something I wanted to say this because of your title, Thread for Pearls. The thing that came through to me when I was reading the book was pop beads, and I haven't thought about pop beads forever and a day. Now, do you know what I mean by
I know
pop
exactly
beads?
what you mean. You'd pop them together and make pearls of threads of them.
Yes.
It's so much fun.
Well, yeah, and that's what I wore, and because we didn't have a lot of money, so pop
that's
beads
sort of
were,
the idea. Each one of these little experiences we have is like a pearl, right?
Yeah.
And you pop them together and you create your life story. But what I'm trying to say is that the thread is important because it's like the pop beads are transparent, and if you pop them together, let's say that they don't have pops together, but you have to put string through them.
Mm-hmm.
If that string is this ugly kind of woe is me, everything happens to me, there's people like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Debbie Downers.
Debbie Downers or, just whatever. That doesn't make for a very beautiful pop bead necklace. But if you have one that says, you know what? Look what happened and I overcame it, or I was able to become a more generous-hearted person, or at least now I understand people better, or you can find some meaning from it and do something positive out of it.
That's cool.
Create art from it,
My grandmother taught me, like with the pop beads, to put certain colors together, and at the end one day she said, look, your necklace is a rainbow. And somehow in your book I was like, she's got the pop beads.
Oh wow. That's
the
beautiful.
rainbow. Yeah, and I was like, and then one day she took them all apart. I was like, no, you ruined my rainbow. She goes, no, make another one. Make it different this time. You make your own rainbows. And so somehow my grandmother's in your book.
Yeah, Nana.
Well,
big
the
time.
grandmothers are important in this book because I think elders are important, and in our society we don't value them.
Yeah, there's I feel that because, do you think maybe because everyone's living in different places that
I think that's
there's
part
a disconnect?
Of it.
And then I was
that's part of it. And we're such a youth-oriented and superficiality-oriented culture. We have to look a certain way and be young, and Botox our elderly lines away, even the smile lines, and
we're losing the integrity of who we are as human beings. To me, it's like I'm watching the aging process. Like something happens, and you're like suddenly I'm in like the middle age thing, and I still feel like I'm in my teens and 20s.
Oh, I still feel like I'm 2 sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I do that. I have temper tantrums like a 3-year-old too at times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, and then I'll go, oh, that's happening, and then I go, oh well, embrace it. Move on. What are you going to do next? What are you going to achieve and accomplish? What are you going to feel good about? What makes you feel good? And I think coming to age stories are so important because there's always a story of someone overcoming something, and you talking about hope, resilience resilience is one of my favorite words in the world.
I know.
I think it's so good because it's sort of like the idea of post-traumatic growth. Too is another one of my favorite things. You can go through trauma, and everybody likes to just dwell in I went through that. But if you can find the growth in it, and the beauty in it, and the resilience from it, it's sort of like
always good that comes out of really bad
challenge.
things.
It's
in
a
some
challenge.
Ways, something good can come out of it. Resilience is a good word. because it's not always like, you can't always say, okay, the bad thing was really bad, and something really nice can happen on the other side, but that's the balance of the world, right? We have to have the salt and the pepper.
Well, the problem is with life is that nobody gets out of it alive, and we all suffer, right? So the question is, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to make it into something terrible? Or are you going to make it into something? Are you going to use it and make it into something beautiful? Are you going to become? What do you use this journey for? And I really love some of the just like, for example, when Josh Pfeiffer in Brand New Shoes, he talks about it fitting like brand new shoes is perfect. I'd say perfect Monday afternoon, since here we are. But fitting like a brand new shoes, this is having an attitude of beauty and joy. Like when he says everything is possible, you know, that's a hopeful song. That's a resilient and hopeful and happy song. I really liked listening to it, and so I'm really glad that you paired us together today, because
that's cool. It's cool that you guys are on the same show, and it's true, because it's all about hope, resilience, and making something. You know, you can make that. It's about making that decision. How are you going to handle this? Are you going to, you know, cry and have your temper tantrum and stay in that zone, or you can have your emotion. You can have, you know, drama is drama, and going through things. I know.
And so you can have your pain too. It's okay to have your pain. Everybody is allowed to have their pain and feel it fully. But and I think that artists have such power, and they have such a power to help people find their way through it, if they can have an honest and, you know, integrity-filled way of talking about it, and then move people forward and through it. That's what an author or a filmmaker or a podcast designer or musician, somebody, that's what we're called to do. That's why they say artists feed the soul. You know?
It does. I think it soothes. It awakens too. It awakens your mind. Art has a way, whether all genres, poetry, music, art, paintings, anything, sculpture. It all has a way. Sometimes, you know, someone will say, "Oh, you need to look at this. You need to change your mind about this. You need to take on this attitude. You need to do. You need to." But a piece of art suddenly can open your mind to the other side of some other way of thinking, or another side of a, you know, I don't know, just thinking at it, putting, you know, wearing somebody else's shoes. Art has this way of doing it without judging you.
Right.
You know,
judging people doesn't really work. It never has worked, has it?
No. So this is interesting. What was it that led you? Because I know that you've written other books, but this is your debut novel. What was it that you said, okay, I'm writing a novel? Like, this is, because you're a storyteller in film. We can talk about Elfenworks too. This is, you know, amazing what you've done as well, Elfenworks Productions. This is an interesting story with that too. You're pro-social business. I love that. It's a new thing that people need to do now. I think all companies need to embrace something other than the profit margin.
Well, a long time ago, I decided to do what I love, you know, and what made me happy, and that's what makes me happy. And what makes me most happy is talking about and bringing about projects that foster hope and that bring more light and love and joy into people's lives. So we've got some albums that are there to try to soothing music, that kind of thing, and we just do what we love, and we hope the rest will follow. And this is one of those things.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, Thread for Pearls. You're like, okay, I'm going to do it in a different outlet now. I'm going to
try a novel. There was a time about, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago now. It could be a little bit longer, because I've been writing this book for a long time. It took me a long time. And there was a lot of research involved, because I wanted it to be historically accurate.
Authentic, yeah.
And there was a time when there was a high school here that had a bout of suicides, and they were copycatting each other, and it was almost like a contagion. And it just got me really, really thoughtful about resilience and whether it could be taught. And I remember reading Dune at that age and learning about fear being a mind killer and Muad'Dib and all this, and how just even a fictional character, a very fictional character, could be so so powerfully influential on me, and maybe I could write something that might help. So my primary audience, as I began, was perhaps high school level students, and then I realized as I was writing it, well, maybe it's people my age, and then I don't know who my audience is. I hope it's someone.
Oh, I think you know, like I said, I saw three people in almost every character. So for me, I think it's going to appeal to several people on different levels. So I think that a teenager would read this and oh, that's all about me, and then a mother would read it and go, oh wow, that's kind of like me and my daughter or my son. And then a grandmother would read it and go, oh yeah, I saw all that happen.
Yeah, but this is what I said about this family book night thing, like a family book club. I would love to see that happen where, you know, we have technology now that, you know, obviously gets used in the wrong ways, and there's ways to use it in the positive ways. And, you know, having this conversation is one of those positive ways, you know. And what you're doing with your podcasts and films and, you know, everything you're doing at Elfenworks, I look at it as like I want to see a book like this because this impacted Nancy, and then, you know, she's telling me stories to, you know, because they were connecting us as a mother-daughter of things that, you know, we both have been through. And or, you know, I've been through, and she goes, oh, I get this over here, I read this, you know, check this out, you know. I would love to see this. I don't know, I have this thing now. It's a new thing. I have a new thing. I want a people have family movie nights, but what if they just across the board, all the family read the same book? Like the entire family across the country, around the world, read the same book.
That'd be
cool. And they got together through Skype, Zoom, whatever, FaceTime, all that stuff, and had a family book meeting once a month, once a year, whatever it is. And the whole family comes in on that. Like, wouldn't that be like this amazing unifier? Like, and it's through a book, a real book. I want the hard book, everybody.
Wow.
But you can do Kindles if you want.
But you would find out. I mean, there's, like we have holiday seasons coming up, and everybody gets together and they eat and they do all that stuff, right? That's cool. Honestly, it is. But then if you were talking about a novel, or you're discussing a movie, or we discuss different musicians, we do this all the time. On Friday we do our music night, and we don't always like each other's choices, but we can say, well, did you know this about this person? Did you know that about that person? And in that little communication there lies where you learn what you thought or think you already knew about the other person. I mean, that's the only way to really learn about people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
you're making a very good point.
So can you start a book club now?
I wouldn't know where to begin, but I like the idea, and I'm glad that we launched on National Read a Book Day, which we did on purpose, and I'm glad that PBS has this whole sort of trying to get America to read novels, which is great for me. I mean, go read novels.
We want to see you on there. Thank you very much.
Oh no, I'm sure they everybody already voted, but I think it's great that they want people reading novels, because that can only help. If people start being interested in reading novels, then mine's a novel too.
Yeah. Well, and I've got to ask, you know, since you're in the world of film, would you ever take your novel? Would you take Thread for Pearls into a movie?
You know, I think it has potential, but I've never done. I'm only a documentarian. I don't think that that's my forte. So I think that I would have to work with somebody whose forte it is. But I don't think I'd be close to that. I would have to, you know, there's some fabulous directors
in documentary style. You could.
No, I don't think it would. I think it would need to be. It would need to be true to the historical fiction that it is. But and I know that there are so many fabulous directors out there. I'm sure that there's somebody who might read it and say, "Gosh, this is for me." Who knows? I'm open.
So, if that were to happen, who would you pick as Fiona, as an actress? Who would you pick for the people in?
such a good question. Who would you pick?
Yeah, Nancy.
Gosh, I'm so old. I'm going to pick an old person and make them young enough to play the part.
No. They have to start. You'd have to have a couple of actors, right? Because
right.
Yeah,
you'd have to have
you'd have to have somebody quite young.
Mean, looking at really
Who
young.
Who would be Fiona?
Okay, Miley Cyrus.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
She's transformative.
And she's got that gumption. I would pick Miley Cyrus.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
And Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep can play anything.
Yeah, exactly.
She can do anything she wants. She can. Yeah. Can she run for president?
She could.
That'd be awesome.
I think she could play Hannah. But that's good. That's a character.
Or a couple of the stars from The Big Bang Theory would be nice for a couple of characters too. Who knows? Who knows?
Hey.
They'd have somebody who's very, very interested in the part, but I think that the director, whoever the director is, would probably, have to have their own thoughts about casting as well.
Yeah.
What was interesting, what Nancy told me about, like I was saying, she keeps like, hey, this is what happened today. This is what wine time is here. Nancy tells me everything that she's reading if she likes it. And but she was talking about how Fiona, traveled so much. It was like, and that's something that really I identify with. I went to 16 different schools. And in different countries. Yeah, South Africa, England, Kenya, and America. And then we lived in other countries too. But we went through a lot of change, and it taught, and resiliency, I think, is that. Because when you're a new kid, it probably turns out to be one of the most important life lessons to me was about being the new kid on the block. Not really quoting the band. But going in, you're the new kid for the first day. Everybody's like curious, and you kind of feel like, oh, everybody likes me. And then you learn later, like, no, they're just curious. You're the new thing that nobody's seen. They're bored. You're new. And then, like, 3 days later, okay, we don't care about you. And now you stink. You've been here for 3 days. They say that about house guests. You've been there for 3 days. You start to smell,
Like fish,
And that's what happens. And then you smell like the rest of them. And then, you now have to build your character from there with how you're going to deal with all these different people. And you're sussing them up. They're sussing you up. And it's really interesting, and I think that is something very cool that you put Fiona into, going through so many different experiences and places, because I think a lot of kids are going through that right now, actually. I think they're moving around a lot in a lot of different ways.
I think that you're right, and that it's difficult right now because the futures that used to be promised if you joined a big company and just moved with them, those aren't there anymore. It's really piecework, and it's very different right now for people who are coming out of colleges with great debt, great college debt. There's no GI Bill that's helping them through, very many of them, and so they're graduating in debt.
Yeah,
that's so sad.
Just very different. It's a different world in some ways, and so. Yeah. It's interesting that you chose Hurdy-Gurdy Man for a song because, there's a quote in there that's just so true. Histories of ages past, unenlightened shadows cast down through all eternity, the crying of humanity. And that's when the Hurdy-Gurdy Man comes singing songs of love. And so it just goes back to, we sing songs of love to each other. We give each other hope. We lift each other up with our books, with our music, with, just everyday actions, small and big. And so I think one of the questions people like to ask me is like, what's my favorite moment in the book? And I have this one little moment where there's a medical doctor who sort of changes Fiona's life a little bit by saying some things to her that no one's ever really said to her. And it's like, you just never know somebody you might meet, what your effect might be on them, just your few words, right? And I like to make that point. You can really change somebody's direction even
Just even in a smile, one smile can change.
Just even some.
Oh, that goes right back to the song, the Brand New Shoes song.
Yeah, it does.
When
right?
you smile my way, everything is possible.
Mm-hmm. Just even the actual have interest in somebody else besides yourself and your life at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, that little bit extra.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we get closed off. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not safe. Don't go there. Don't do this. And you know, it's like, are you being sensible? I hate that word, sensible.
Well, there's that, and then there's the sort of like the assuming that everybody's awful. Instead of assuming that, look, this person. Generally, my assumption is they're doing the best they can. And if that's the best they can, sometimes that's pretty miserable, but wonder what it was that got them there. You know,
exactly.
It must have been pretty bad. Something must have really happened to close them off in such a way.
Also, you know, because I know the book was also part of Fiona going through living in a commune and seeing things like ashrams and things like that. So there's all these.
Casualties of the human potential movement and everything else.
Oh my gosh! But we're still in that.
Yes. Yes. It's a living warning to people. Some things to watch out for that exist right now.
Mm-hmm. There's got to be something where, well, I like that because it's still this coming of age, and I think you could be any age and come of age. It could be you could be in your 70s and now like I need to change direction or thought patterns. Who am I now?
Right.
Well, you're talking about change.
We change as human beings. We grow. We learn. Things change in our world, and if you're not awake to it, and I think this is what this whole conversation is, and your book you're talking about, it's resiliency, it's hope, and it's about making that mental. You have to think about what you're doing, what you're saying to people, how you're reacting. What are you doing for you? It's about being conscious at the end of it.
Right. And I think that you are right about you can grow at any age. Sometimes, there was a guy named Maslow who had this hierarchy of needs, and if you were still at survival, you couldn't really get up all the way to self-actualization because you were just trying to survive. And there were some times when Fiona in this book is just trying to survive, and it only is sort of towards later in the book where she's able to really have any sort of personal growth and to look back and reflect, because sometimes when things are really bad, you can force a smile because you can't look. It's too hard to look. You have to smile, like the Charlie Chaplin song.
Oh yeah.
You have to smile because that's what gets you through.
And then you can still deal with it later. You have to know where your strengths lie. You have to allow yourself to breathe so you can, pick your battles and do what you need to do.
But you don't get to do any of that unless a challenge is proposed to you.
That's true too.
Yeah, whenever, whether it's good or bad, when something happens in your life, that's a challenge, and it's how you handle it, and you don't get to know yourself until a challenge comes by.
Man, I can't wait to read this,
You don't grow without
Lauren.
rain. Yeah, flowers don't grow without rain, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. But they'll even grow through cracks in the road, and they'll grow through things, but they need that rain.
Mountains, and they're like, I'm coming through.
I know, it's amazing. But Lauren, and that's resilience. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Before you go, I mean, I could talk to you forever, and I want to read your book and talk to you again. This is like so
cool. Well, thank you.
I want to know. You pick a song from your playlist, okay?
I
want to know. You're going to play with 2 or 3 other musicians. You're going to perform that song, okay? So, what are you playing? Are you going to sing? Are you going to play an instrument? What song? What are you playing? And who are you going to perform with? They can be live or passed on. It could be the original people who, wrote or sang it or played it. And where are you going to perform it?
Ooh. That's a good question.
Those are a lot of questions for me.
Well, okay, think of the song first that you would like to play in, like you want to perform that from your playlist.
gosh, there are songs that I'm a musician, so I have performed a lot of these songs.
Okay.
I played Fire and Rain at my father's funeral.
Oh.
Just as an example.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to bring Thread for Pearls up, and it's not wanting to come up for me. But
well, that's the way, the technology does it. You've got, okay, so what if you played Rock Lobster? I want to go back to it. What would you play?
That's so funny.
Oh, you got Higher Ground too, and that's like one of my favorite of all time.
I love Higher Ground. I love Stevie Wonder. I would never dare play Stevie Wonder. I would leave
but
that
Rock
to
Lobster, come on, that's fun. Come on.
It's of course it's fun. I'd probably choose one of the Grateful Dead songs. I've played some of those. I'd choose one of the James Taylor songs, something that's within my range of possibilities. I chose a lot of songs that I would.
And what do you play? What do you play?
Well, I'm a classically trained violinist. I used to be in the first violin section of the Peninsula Symphony. I made Fiona learn to play viola as a high schooler because viola gets picked on unfairly. Viola is a difficult instrument, and it's an inside voice. It has to do the harmonies, which are kind of more difficult in a way than just singing along a little melody the way that we first violins play.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Grateful Dead or James Taylor is there.
I think so. That's I don't want to do a Beatles cover. I get upset at Beatles covers unless it's for somebody really, really, really wonderful.
And any musicians you want to play with?
Oh my gosh.
For this concert, because now it's a full concert.
Yeah. I want to go.
Well, gosh. I'd play with James Taylor and
why not?
Why not? And Paul McCartney too, Sir Paul.
Oh,
sure.
Yeah, and James Taylor was just there for Joni Mitchell's 75th birthday. Man, I saw a photo of them. She's so cool too. Sorry, but just like that's cool. Cool.
Yeah.
So you got James Taylor. That's good. Paul McCartney. Anybody else?
Hold on. Let's see. I mean, are you really asking me? Anyone? Gosh.
Anyone. You can have anyone. The world is at your fingertips.
Anything world is my oyster?
Yeah.
How about,
because that's
then
how
I'll
you
play
get
with
a
Josh
pearl.
Pfeiffer too, because
Josh,
of course.
You can sing. That's right. Josh can come and sing. I like it.
And
I like it.
Some of my friends from LA, Allison Lewis and Josh Workman, and my whole band, my Commodore Callahan band, Don Kane, my bassist, and I don't know. We could put a great thing together.
No wonder.
We'd have to do it for a cause. It would have to be for a cause. So we'd have to do it for climate change or, something important that's going on right now that we care about. Maybe the park systems, art in the park.
Oh, I like that because they need it because their money's about to get chopped again. So this is it. I love this. So basically now we have two new things. We have book club for families and a concert for climate change and national parks. I like this. Look how much we've accomplished in one show.
Fantastic. Hey, let's invite Carole King, too, while we're at it.
Oh, yes. Oh, we have to have Carole.
And
are you kidding me?
Joan Baez and...
Oh, no, she's just inviting the whole... We're going to have a festival now.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Joan Baez has to be there, too. You know, she's my favorite.
Oh, my gosh. Can we get the Talking Heads? They're not still together, are they?
I love the Talking Heads. Cool. You know, one of our writer friends interviewed them back in Colorado, Mark Stevens, an awesome novelist as well. And he's like, when back in my day, I interviewed the Talking Heads on a show, and I was like, okay, I don't like you anymore. But I'm like so jealous because the Talking Heads are one of the craziest bands ever. They are. They're awesome to watch. I mean, they're just like David Byrne. Come on, man.
Yeah,
and he did movies too.
If we could just get him. And let's just get him. We'll get Mick Jagger. We'll just, just get everybody on my list. How about that? Just get them all.
Oh, we'll just have a big
Jackson
festival.
Brown.
Oh, okay. And Alice Cooper. We had his guitarist on our show. We can bring him. We can get him. He'll do it.
You're the one. You mentioned Tower of Power. Why not? Why don't you just bring everybody? We'll just have it.
Okay.
It'll be fantastic. It'll just be a world of music.
I love it. I love it. thank you so much for joining us, Lauren. It's been a real treat having you on the show. I can't wait to read your book. I know Nancy's told me about it, but I'm going to have to give it a week now. But I will be in it soon. Everybody, it's Thread for Pearls, A Story of Resilient Hope. It's on Amazon, all those great places. But I would say go to the author's website because you want to check her playlist out, too.
Exactly.
It's threadforpearls.com. And you can also keep up with Lauren on her Twitter and Facebook as well. And we want to thank the National Parks Arts Foundation for sponsoring this segment. You can keep up with them at nationalparksartsfoundation.org. And here it is. We're going to play Hurdy-Gurdy Man. We'll get Josh on in a second, but Hurdy-Gurdy Man first. And this is from Raspin Stewart. And you can go to raspin.com, Raspin, and this is one of his latest singles. And he's about to release his new album, New York to L.A. He's got an Indiegogo campaign going on right now. It's 72% funded. So check him out at raspin.com, and he's cool. So here it is, Hurdy-Gurdy Man. Thanks, Lauren. You take care.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.